Hello, Internet. We are back. We are continuing Legacy Partners, Entrepreneurship. It's very important. We have Kevin here with us. I don't need to introduce the man, but you all know him, 3-2 Battalion. And he's going to talk to us today. Kevin, what are you talking to us today about time?
Yep. Once again, it's a freedom, and it's freedom through time. And we're coming down, and now this is number 4. Because we did the intro course where you had done the exercise about extending your lifespan. So besides the fact that you came up with an extra 10 years, you also wrote down some of the freedoms that you would like to see. It was freedom around purpose, money, time, health, how you felt mentally on that. And then you took that, those goals that you set there, and you took that together with your extra 10 years, and then you hit the first freedom through courage. Okay. Now, with freedom all the way through, starting with courage, you got to decide. And if you look at the Greek or the Latin word around decide, it actually says, like in homicide, kill off. So if you really want to accelerate your freedom, okay, because that's really what ambitious, successful, entrepreneurial people need to do. You need to decide. And one thing I can assure you, that when you decide to kill off things that are not working for you, you become less skeptical in life, especially when you're going down the filter of courage, meaning that when you commit and you go through a period of courage, that's where there's excitement and there's a level of fear. Those models that you use in there will get you to stop using the word skeptical. Okay, successful and ambitious entrepreneurial people are never skeptical. They believe in themselves and they put things to the test that they believe need to be put to the test. So in my opinion, when I'm speaking to myself, Kevin Johnson, and I see the word skeptical come into like my prefrontal cortex, I've come to the conclusion, and my brain works just like everyone else's, it's a bit of a comfort blanket. I don't perhaps like what I see that I might have to do here. So what I'll say is, I'm a bit skeptical about this. And in actual fact, what it is, it's a comfort blanket, okay, that says, I'd prefer to stay on the left side where I'm capable and confident rather than walking across to the other side, where you've got to commit and go through a period of courage. So decide is a very important word if you want to be successful and ambitious. Then I go one step further. Recently, through my good friend Franz, who's the psychologist, he came up with an interesting thing too. And he said that to change, especially if you're fighting to change with certain things, you've got to get it to upset you. So in other words, it's got to be upsetting. I am upset that I'm only making £11,000 a month. And then it becomes a lot easier to decide. So what Franz is basically saying there is that with some things in life, okay, the change won't come unless it's upsetting enough. And to me, I buy 100% into that. So for that, I'm very grateful to Franz. I must just also say, as we're going through these books, they do work for successful, ambitious people. But if there's some mental blocks, then, you must reach out to Franz because that's his area of expertise. Okay. So we came down the funnel of freedom through courage. We've got the 4 points on the PDF. with the video. We then went to a house, we looked at the same thing. We then went to look at purpose, because all those things are important before we get into time and next week money. So let's now take some things from 3-2 battalion. So what I'd like you to do now, Chris, is to grab a sheet and then have at the top what's not working, and then halfway down from left to right, what's working. So what's not working and what's working when it comes to your courage and your courage library that you're building up, and your current goal that you've got around courage, your likewise with health and purpose. What's not working and what's working. So I'll give you a couple of minutes on that.
Okay, I made my list.
Good. Okay. So what I'd like to do now is to now move on to obviously this one through a time. So here's another exercise that I'd like you to do. So you can turn over and then basically have from top to bottom draw a line down where, you know, it's wide enough to put 3, 4, 5 words in it, each line. And then next to that line that you draw down, have a gap of about 1 centimeter, and then draw another line down from top to bottom. Okay, so what we're going to do with this one, Chris, is we're going to take another little exercise that we discussed when we were at 3-2 battalion. And that is what I'd like you to write down is, what are all the things, and because this is obviously an entrepreneurial focused thing, naturally you're going to focus on your business. What are the things that you shouldn't be doing? And then every time you write something down, in that column next to it, write just plus minus how many hours it takes up a year. How many hours does that one point that you shouldn't be doing take up of your time per year? And then you just continue for a while. I normally, when I do this exercise, it takes me 40 minutes. So spend a couple of minutes on that.
Okay, I got 4 points. And it's a lot of hours.
So you got a lot of
hours.
Okay, so I know it's very difficult, but because you're going to go and do the exercise when you've got quality time, because with me it takes about 40 minutes. It's amazing. You write down, you put the hours, you write down, and then all of a sudden you're just holding the pen in your hands. But then here's the key. You just stick at it, and then you get second wind, and then you start to write again. Okay, so if you were doing this now for 40 minutes, and you had to add up all those hours for the year, okay? Now, sometimes a year resonates with people, so then you've got the answer because you've added up all the hours. With some people, a month resonates with them. So then basically you would divide all those hours by 12. And then with some people, a week resonates with them. So they'll take all those hours and divide it by 52. So what is the time frame that resonates with you? Yearly? Would it be yearly if you had to add up all those hours?
Yes, it's worked out per year.
Yeah.
So I worked it out per day. It's already worked out per year.
Yeah. Now with me, when I do the exercise, I write the annual hours there that I'm going to save, because I want to really see how many hours in the year Am I doing things that I shouldn't be doing? But then for me to resonate with it, because, that's me, next person's different. I divided by 52 to see how many hours I'm wasting per week. Some like to do it per month. It makes no difference. The impact will be exactly the same. So just in this short period of time, if you had a full 40 minutes, would it be fair to say there's going to be a fair number of hours there?
Well, we already had 750, and that's only 4 things I identified. So if we put in, if I really have to think and we had the time, no, it's going to be thousands. It's going to be a lot.
Okay.
Couple of months.
Right. So as a successful, ambitious person wanting to take that big, bold purpose of yours, and we're going to get down to the freedom through money next week, would it be fair to say at this stage of the game, if you sort your life out with those hours that you should get rid of, then mentally you're going to feel, oh, there's some space here. I've got some extra hours.
Yes, and with that will go the anxiousness of feeling you can't get to everything.
Exactly. So what I want you to write down here is a couple of words, and I'm not going to explain anything to you about the words, because what you need to do is that when you're using these freedoms correctly, right from courage all the way down to the 8th one, then it'll hit home one day. Okay, what I'm now going to share with you. This doesn't allow an explanation. You have to experience it as just one of those things. So what I'd like you to write down is the following. When it comes to time, because that's what we're talking about today, it is either scarcity, fixed, linear, or abundant, flexible, and exponential. And if you want to turn the magic on in your entrepreneurial life, then guaranteed you will see that more of them lie with a mindset of seeing time as abundant, flexible, and exponential, rather than scarcity, fixed, and linear. So I really want you to park that off, look at it from time to time, and then one day you'll go, yep, I get it. I can now feel it. And when you start to feel it, it changes the way you think about time. Okay, so now let us move on. So what I'd like to do is to spend a little bit of time on another habit that we brought from 3-2 Battalion, namely rest days, preparation days, and money-making days. So what we're going to do is recap, because it always starts with rest days. You don't work yourself into the ground and tired and then go and rest. You make sure that you always rest, and then you go and play and make the money that you so desire to make. So you're never operating where you're burning out. That's foolish, because they can scientifically prove it now. You lose all your critical thinking, you lose all your problem-solving ability. There's just many parts of your faculties that start to go. Now, unless you're doing low, mundane type of work, admin work at your desk, that's a different story. But for successful, ambitious people, you need to always be on the top of your game. So the rest days are critically important. And the rest days, once again, I'm going to recap, is that 24/7, so it's midnight to midnight, that's a rest day. Not half 12 hours a year and then in 4 days' time, another half a day. The brain needs a full rest of minimum of 24 hours. Let's say a minimum. So there you can refresh, rejuvenate, re-energize, recharge the batteries. And scientifically, the brain needs to make sense of all those previous days' activities. Okay, so that's the rest day. Then the in-between day, rehearsal day, preparation day, the day that buffers you between a rest day and the money-making day. That's the day where you and your staff know that anything that needs to be sorted out in the business before you go to your money-making day, or anything that needs to be sorted out before you go on your rest day because you don't want them interrupting you on your rest day, that's what you use that day for. I mean, and you look at pros, how they do it. Look at the guys from the reconnaissance unit, where how much time they spend on preparation, rehearsal, preparation, rehearsal. They don't confuse that when they go to the bush. They clearly separate those two types of days. And that's exactly what you got to learn to do in the entrepreneurial world, because if you look at reconnaissance or 3-2 battalion or any unit for that moment, just circumstances get you to be able to separate the days. But unfortunately, as an entrepreneurial person, where we sit more and more in front of a computer, you can be all over the place in your mind because you've got the whole world in front of you. So, you've got to discipline yourself, and it's got to become habitual that you're separating the days. And then you can go to your most important day. That's the day when you make money, and then the staff know that you're focusing on money-making days. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean sales, because you might have a team of salespeople already. But what you could be doing is saying, I'm now going to spend time on coming up with better features around my product. I'm going to spend a money-making day where I'm going to come up with easier ways for my salespeople to close more deals. I'm going to spend time on seeing how we can move the monies from 100K to 1 million. Well, you don't want to be having a day where you're doing that and you're needing to focus, and then you got your staff on your back all the time. Could you sign this check? Could you look at this? Because you're going to lose concentration on a very important thing. So those are the 3 things that I came to realize at 3-2 battalion, that there's no normal week at 3-2. You're either in the bush, which is a money-making day, or you're back at the base, which is the prep day, the rehearsing day, or you're resting. And when I say rest, there's no work involvement. And in many cases, you're back in South Africa.
There's something, Kevin, in South Africa and across the world which people really love, and it's called the Boss Parade, which is where you go to a place, all of you as a company, and then you work out strategies, I suppose. Now, where would this Boss Parade fall under your free days, if any? Because I've never seen a Boss Parade which is worth the money you pay for it. Or am I wrong?
Well, if they go in there just to sort of review the year, then I'd basically say it's preparation. But if they go in there to say, well, hold on, this war is now going to escalate, and what does it actually mean if they move from certain weapons that they got to more sophisticated tanks? What happens if the Cubans are going to increase their forces, but not only are they going to increase their forces, the Russians are going to give them better equipment. What are they going to do if they actually have sophisticated ships off the coast of Southwest Africa, etc., etc.? Well, to me, that's our money-making day.
Would these 3 days be in equal parts? Because I know it's not like that. At 3 to you people would deploy how many weeks? 6 weeks or something?
Yes, you're
But
around
then you're
about that.
back in the base. So how do you work out the ratio between?
Well, as an entrepreneurial person, and you'll see in the PDF that's going to be at the bottom, so that's a good question, Chris, the bottom of this video, is that an entrepreneurial person is looking to increase the profitability and the productivity of their business with more free time. So if you're going to be looking at rest days, these buffer practice, whatever you want to call it, days and money-making days, you will find that the guys that have got longevity in the game of entrepreneurialism and they see their profits going up dramatically, their aim is always to increase the rest days. It's the ultimate for an entrepreneurial person. Rest days. Now, let me tell you, these solo entrepreneurs, rugged individuals, call it what you want, who are on these 14, 16-hour treadmills and their wives are going mad, they won't buy into what I'm saying now. And the reason being, they wouldn't know what to do with a rest day. Now, that's probably true because they don't have many of them. But then again, some will go and try it. And the anxiety will be so high that they'll run back to their desk and switch their computer on. And that's where I say to people, just hang in and go through a rest day. The amygdalas and everything will eventually calm down and you'll go, wow, this is great. Because all those things that when I'm sitting at the computer where there's a problem and I don't like this and I'm worried about this, somehow when you get your rest days, you come back to work, you say, well, most of them actually weren't ever a problem. So the key, here's the key takeaway, is that if you're not used to rest days and you're going to take a rest day, be very proactive about the rest day. Have a full itinerary. You know, you're going to go for a coffee or you're going to go for a meal. You're going to go for a walk. Let it be a very proactive day, because if you're going to sit on the sofa, okay, with that little contraption for your TV set, well, there's a high possibility that you'll move from the TV set to your computer. So make it proactive and get out.
So if I understand you correctly, and perhaps we should discuss this, a rest day really mean a rest day?
Yes,
Not
24.
Your cell phone, not quickly glancing at something?
Nothing. If you're going out to the countryside for a day and you put one file in the back of your boot, it's not a rest day. And then someone says, but I won't touch the file. I say, excuse me, what do you think's written on my head? Also, it's not about whether you actually touch the file, it's that you're going to be thinking about it. It's like a kid, you know, it's wet paint, but they've got to go and touch it. No files in the actual boot.
Yeah, it actually reminds me a bit of Field Marshal Montgomery, because he was one of these guys who planned the operation so well, so far ahead, that come the day he would go to bed early and sleep. And they woke him once, I think, during El Alamein. And he got so upset with him, they never woke him ever again.
Yes.
So he's probably a good guy as an example.
Yes. And you know, these people that respected, for example, rest and sleep and that many, many years ago, they'd really to be admired because then there was no science behind it. Now, you know, you really got to be ignorant if you're ignoring the sciences behind all of this. You know, there's more than enough evidence. Okay, so that's basically another tool, another hack you should be using. So you now know you've got a whole whack of hours and you're going to make a plan to get rid of them. And you know how you're going to try and live your days. These things don't all happen overnight. Now, what I'd like you to do is to take out a sheet of paper, normal story again, 4 blocks, top right. What I want you to write there is procrastination law. Procrastination law. Okay, so I'm going to keep it practical and I'm going to share with you how I use this unbelievable super filter. It is truly unbelievable and it shouldn't take you more than 2-3 minutes in the morning. Yep, that's correct. No more than 2-3 minutes. If you don't have 2 to 3 minutes, okay, then as an entrepreneurial person, then there's got to be something wrong with how you spend your days. But what I'd like you to do is I would like you to have a leap of faith, of course, and see procrastination as your wisdom. Okay? That procrastination, you can actually give it a name. You could actually say Mr. Procrastination because you're a male. Now that Mr. Procrastination sits inside of you. He's with you 24/7. And like someone once said to me, what you must do is you must go to Mr. Procrastination that sits within you and say to the little shit, he ain't staying rent-free anymore. He ain't going to be staying rent-free anymore because every morning you're going to come to him and you're going to get him to do a bit of work. You're going to be saying to him, hey, Mr. Procrastination, what do you have for me today? And let me tell you, machine learning, artificial intelligence, okay, none of that stuff can come near Mr. Procrastination because he resides within you, Chris, just like he resides within me. Okay, he is your ultimate wisdom. You just go to him. He's like a pet dog. He's loyal. He's there every day. He never sleeps in, and he'll always have the answers for you, providing you ask him, hey, Mr. Procrastination, what do you have for me today? Now, here's the issue. You're not going to sometimes like the answer that he gives you. So you know what you're going to do? You're going to push him to the side and you're going to say, no, he's a waste of time or she's a waste of time. Or you're going to be skeptical about him. And then if he could talk, he'd say to you, you know what, Quiz? You lack some moral fiber. I'm just going back to sleep. And then life will continue as normal. You leave him alone. He then stays rent-free, so he's happy. And from your side, well, you just remain the same person that you've always been because you can't decide for yourself. You can't kill off. Right. So that's the first filter you come through. Next one is Pareto's law. Paretos law. And it's commonly known as the 80-20 principle. It's a principle. So it's not, the two numbers are not always exactly the same. But what it's basically saying is that 20% of your effort gives you 80% of your result. So when Mr. Procrastination says to me, hey, Kev, this is what I got for you. And remember, he's a half decent bloke, this procrastination. So he starts off in the beginning with small ones, but then he sees your courageous muscle getting stronger and stronger. Then he throws big lumpy ones at you, the ones that are really going to make a big difference in your life. So then what you do is just to play safe. Because you see, in the beginning, you might be a skeptical bugger. So what you do is you put it through Pareto and you say, is this an 80-20 principle one? And Pareto says, absolutely. That is a goal-directed habit. That is a result-driven habit that Mr. Procrastination's giving to you, quiz. So absolutely, I tick the box, says Mr. Pareto. And you go, okay, cool. Then you move to the third box, bottom left. And there is waiting Pearson's law. Now, there actually is a person called Mr. Pearson, just like there's a Mr. Pareto. Obviously, there's no Mr. Procrastination. I've just made that up, but there actually is a Pareto. Unfortunately, he's dead. And then obviously you've got Mr. Pearson, Pearson's law. And what he says, okay, if you give too much time to something, it'll take up all your time. So therefore, what you've got to do is learn to give less time to something. And what they found scientifically is that you'll come out the other side with a better result. So a very good example would be you've got 6 weeks out to a presentation. And then what you basically do is you start putting together PowerPoint presentations, and then you rehearse and you overdo it. And eventually you get to the day and you feel like, oh, I'm overwhelmed and what's the best template, etc. That's a very good example of, did I say Pearson's law? No, I made a mistake. Parkinson's. The next one is Pearson's. Parkinson's law. Okay. So you give less time to things and you will discover that you'll come out the other side with a better result. So if you have a look, and in the template that's below, when you digest Pareto's law and Parkinson's law, you will see they come in from two different angles, and that's why they sit well together when putting it through the filter. And then you get to the last one, which is Pearson's law. And Pearson's law is about putting a measurement to it. Preferably a due date, a percentage, a number, where you could actually measure that particular task that you've put through the filter. So to recap again, you go to your Mr. Procrastination, either in the evening or early in the morning. What have you got for me? Then you put it through Pareto's law to make sure that it is an important thing. Then you go to Parkinson's and he will tell you not to devote too much time to it. And then lastly, Pearson's law is all about measurement. That takes you no more than, I said 3 minutes. Once you get momentum course, it'll take you no more than a minute. Just to make doubly sure. What it's also doing, it's reinforcing a couple of times that that exercise that you should be doing is very important. So it's going to help you with not procrastinating. Because when I put it through there, I feel like, oh my God, it's ticked the boxes with all of this. And if I'm now not going to do this, then there's proof that I'm faking it.
Are you saying that, no, I'm a structured fellow, unlike my wife. My wife is not structured. But I work things out, really. I would go to bed and I would plan exactly the next day to the minute. I know what time I'm getting up, God willing, of course.
Yes, yes.
And I do know all these things. Are you saying, Kev, we should take our diary and run these 4 sequences through every task?
Yes. And the reason why I say that is that, unfortunately, being structured and busy and disciplined is not necessarily going to get you to the promised land as an entrepreneur. And I'll tell you why. Now, this might sound a bit hard, especially for the military guys, but it's not about discipline. Besides the fact that discipline is not a nice word, it seems like you've been punished. That's how it feels. Not about discipline. What it's actually about, it's about goal-directed habits. Because if you think of it, we're all 100% disciplined to our existing habits. That's why you need to put it through to Mr. Procrastination, because he will pull you up and say, mate, you might have the best looking diary, your tasks are all lined up nicely, you're disciplined to it, but where the hell are you going with that stuff that's in your diary? It's about goal-directed habits. And this is what this filter is doing.
That's very clever.
Yes. Okay, so if we go to mindset number 8, which we're getting familiar with, which is the freedom through time, the freedoms through grow. Just like with purpose, every quarter I come up with a goal for freedom through time. And grow stands for the goal. What do I want when it comes to freedom through time? Second question, why do I want it? What do I want the result to look like? And with the result, you can write their best result, brackets, if I take action, worst result, in brackets, if I don't take action when it comes to this particular mindset. What are all the obstacles holding me back? And if the why is strong enough, then you're going to be quite excited about it, Chris, because when it comes to the W, you're no longer asking yourself, how am I going to be doing it? You're asking, who is going to be helping me? So just like in, let's say, a company, you've got the company commander, the company sergeant major, the PAL Bev and the platoon sergeant. That's sort of the spine of the company, yeah? So for me, when it comes to grow, the spine of grow is the why do I want it in the goal? Yeah? The ability to overcome those obstacles and the who is going to help me. That's the spine. And if the why is not strong enough, you probably won't come off base 1. If the why is not strong enough, you won't get the who's excited buying into your goal, because it's been scientifically proven people like the why part of your goal. Not what do you want, the why part. And I'm experiencing it in my business. I have people call me and say, hey, could I collaborate with you? What they're really saying is, I want to be your who. because they like the why. So there we go, quiz. So the homework really is exactly the exercises that you went through today, but just devoting more time to it. So that when we get to next week, freedom through money, you know, you've now at least got momentum with your courage muscle. You've got your purpose pretty well lined up. You're sorting out things that can help you on the health side to be more effective at work. You've got more than enough exercises here to free up time. And then we move into the money one.
I have a question. If someone is following the program till now obviously you and me, there's a week apart when we record for business reasons. We've got other things to do as well.
Yes.
But this would not be like that at the conference, would it be, Kevin? They would be like you speaking, say, 2 days. Then people can actually do this over a period of 2 days or 1 day even, all of them together. Do they need to wait a week like we do?
Well, I mean, I've got practical example. As I said, I'm not an advisor or a coach in that. I mean, we're in the business of software. But I've had clients who've come my way and said, well, you know, Kev, you've touched on these freedoms and that, et cetera, et cetera. Would you be prepared to work with me one-on-one? Because obviously, you know, when you sell software, it's high volume type of stuff. So you can't work one-on-one with people. So I'd say to that person, yep, because I take on a few every year. I say, yeah, absolutely. Obviously, they've got to be successful, ambitious on that. They got to put skin in the game. And it's no like hidden secret. I charge them $25,000, yeah, US dollars. So how it would actually work with these 8 freedoms is very simple. Is I would get them to do the scorecard electronically. It'll come into my inbox. I check there how they score themselves, where they want to be. And the scorecard also tells me whether it's actually worth getting involved with them. Because sometimes they're scoring themselves so low, Quiz, that you can't really work with them. They're not ready for what I want to share with them. But let's say they are ready because they scored themselves decently. And someone said to me, well, how do you know their score's correct? Well, whatever their score is, that's the score. Because that's their opinion of themselves, okay? And I've never found someone who's lied when they do the scoring, because people only perhaps tell a bit of lies when they're doing the scoring with you to avoid embarrassment. But when they're doing it electronically, people intend to be honest. So that sorts that out. Okay, so on a more practical note, how would it work? Well, the first session that they would have with me like this is basically a 4-hour session where we'll break it down into 4 chunks, which will enable them to go away wherever they're sitting, have their coffee, relax, etc. Come back. We have 4 sessions. And then they would leave having spent quality time with me, having gone through GROW, G-R-O-W, with all 8 of the mindsets. Then they would go away, and I would every fortnight have a 15-minute catch-up for one simple reason. These are successful, ambitious people. It's just that with Pearson's Law, the fact that they know that they're having to meet with me for 15 minutes, okay, and because they're successful and they're ambitious, you know, these guys and women, they've got pride. So they bring things up to speed for their 8. And I've had very successful people, and they're very excited to report in how nicely they're progressing. Then mid-quarter, because everything's 90 days, mid-quarter, we meet for what I call a game. You know, 40 minutes of rugby. So we meet for 40 minutes, rest for 10, another 40, just to make sure we're on track. And then I see them in the new quarter. And that's how I rock and roll with them for 4 quarters. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. How important is it to keep your quarterly papers? Will you ever go back 2-3 years from now to see where you were?
No. Because what actually happens is that for me, 25-year moving, so therefore 1% is 1 quarter, either great quarter or not such good quarter. And what I discover is that what I need to know about the past is in my head. And anything that's not in my head about the past, meaning, you know, those goals that you said, they're probably not important. So no, it's always get to the end of the quarter, the 3-2 battalions, 4 questions. What shouldn't I be doing? What should I be doing? What's not working? What is working? Right, let me set my 8 new goals.
So you reinforce success.
Yeah. And I think I might have said this in my previous video. You'll notice also that with the actual scorecard itself, which is at the bottom of the video, there's 8 mindsets, 8 companies at 3-2 battalion, 4 definitions in each row, 32. Exactly the same with 3-2 battalion. And then someone said to me the other day, now with the workbooks, we noticed there's 4 blocks as well. I said, yeah, because 8 mindsets times 4 blocks is 32. So someone then got really funny with me. They were working in the city. He said, you know, for each of your mindsets, you got a quadrant, like we've just gone through today. I go, yeah. He said, in front of 2 other guys, he said, do you know them in your head without looking at a sheet? Do you know them from, you know, the beginning in the courage all the way down to grow? I said, no, I can actually recite it to you backwards as well. Because I've been 17 quarters now in it conscientiously, you know, where, what's the word? It's not qualitative anymore. It's now quantitative. You know, I'm scoring myself every quarter. Where do I want to be from where I was? I go through the 8 and I can feel it, that I'm living more now in my 8 freedoms than outside of it.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Because you only have so much time anyway every day.
Yes.
And you cannot change time. And therefore you have to use time to your own advantage as much as you can.
Yeah. And we find, you know, because we've got consultants, coaches, advisors that buy our software from us, and then they use our methodologies to use the software effectively. And it's quite frightening to see the hold that the internet is having on people. It is spending hundreds of billions to get your attention, and they're wanting your attention for their own gain. Now, what I find with my 8 freedoms is that my attention is becoming more and more my property, not someone else's property. And when you stay long enough in your growth, goal, results, obstacles, the who, not how, you then start discovering that you've got more than enough creativity to come up with decent goals, results, obstacles, and who's going to help you. More than enough intelligence, more than enough critical thinking, more than enough problem solving, more than enough curiosity. And now you just go off in the world to find out what and who's going to help you, rather than spending all the time out there for the next bit of advice, the next bit of guidance. You know, there comes a stage where you just got to have more faith in you. And someone said to me, does that only come late in life? I said, no. If I had someone that came along with this gift, I would have already been using it when I was 22, 23.
Now, that too makes sense to me, and I keep on saying it because at some stage you actually have to go and do something.
Exactly.
You can plan as much as you wish. I mean, let's talk about OpSuper. We were talking about it just before we started recording.
Yes.
Because Boris was one of the guys who actually planned it on General Bowman. But so what? There's a lot of plans being made. There's even plans, I'm sure, in Washington to attack the UK, should it be necessary.
Exactly.
But at some stage, you need to actually go and do it.
Yes, yes, yes. And that's the problem, you know, what's the opposite of doing is something that's holding you back. And there, once again, you know, France can come to the fore because he talks about the imposter syndrome. You know, what is it that's holding you back? So what I'll do is I won't get going with my own goal. I'll go and read up about goals on the internet, and I'll see an PDF. Oh, yeah, and I'll have a bit of tea, and then I see there's another video on goal setting, and then I'll listen to the goal setting video. Then you know, man, you just need to go to Mr. Procrastination, and he will say, oh, my God, here you go again. You've got more than enough in you to start setting your own goals.
Well, I suppose that's the difference between success and not.
Yes, yes. And it goes back to that courage box because, you know, what goes hand in hand with Mr. or Mrs. Procrastination is Mr. or Mrs. Perfection. Meaning, if I'm not capable or if I'm not confident, I'm not going to give it a go. But now we're lucky because now we know we got a formula. We just come over and go, no, that's a bigger breakthrough. I just need to be committed. I need to go through a period of courage. My grow will tell me who I need to start going to for help. And then you come out the other side. And then eventually, you know, Mr. Procrastination starts to disappear because then what you know is it's not about procrastination and perfection. It's about going to Mr. or Mrs. Procrastination and saying, what do you have for me today? And if he could talk, you'll be going, yeah. Mr. Perfection's also waiting now, so I'm going to tell you, but you're probably not going to do it because Mr. Perfection's going to say, yeah, you must remember me, eh? Don't go along course and do something until it's perfected. Well, you know, you can't move like that in life. Just need to go Elon Musk's factory and see what he's achieved in the last decade. If his was always based on perfection and confidence and capability, he wouldn't be near where he is today. You just need to listen the extent to which they experiment in the courage box.
Yes, you have to be flexible.
Yes. So I'm mindful of your time. So if we could maybe just wrap up by saying the following. When it comes to freedom through time, today, did you get some clarity and direction?
Yes, absolutely. I'm actually excited.
Okay, so then that hopefully answers the next box. You got a bit of confidence about time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm focused.
Okay, and with some of these exercises today, you've seen that there's some new capability for you to be able to start moving from scarcity, fixed and linear, more to seeing time as abundant, flexible and exponential. So would you say that you could give a tick to that box?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So to those listeners out there, if you tick in the 3 boxes as well, the stuff we're not charging you, but what we would appreciate, you can see down at the bottom, we got the details of my unit's Veterans Association, and we'd appreciate, you know, any form of donation that's possible. And to those people that are living abroad, You don't have to convert it to rand. You can just give the euros that you're comfortable with, or the sterling, or the US dollars. Or I know there's a lot of South Africans down there in Australia and New Zealand, so we accept New Zealand dollars and Australian dollars. So next week, we'll be focusing on freedom through money.
Well, we come to the end of another one of these, which I must say I find fascinating. Every time I sit down with Kevin, I actually walk out of a room and I say to myself, I've learned something. And I don't think you're ever too old to learn anything in life. Unless you're dead or something, then you don't need to learn. So I wish to thank you for that. I wish to say to you, Kevin, thank you for your efforts, your time here. Okay. I believe one day people are going to recognize this for what it is. And this is worth gold. So if your people can contribute to a Free to Association, you know the money is not going to be wasted. You know the money is being used. And there's a great need. So let us see what we can do. And we'll meet again with the next one. Until then, God bless.